Dr. Jessica Fusch graduated from the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine in 2011. She worked full-time as a mixed animal vet for 3.5 years, during which time she did a lot of farm and house calls and found that many people and pets benefit greatly from this practice model. After her second son was born, she began providing relief services for other veterinarians while also starting her own house call practice, which includes telemedicine consults. Dr. Fusch has a special interest in holistic practice modalities and completed acupuncture training at the Chi Institute in 2011. Dr. Fusch is also an author and public speaker and an avid reader who would stay in school forever if she could afford to. When not focused on veterinary medicine, she also enjoys weightlifting, yoga, traveling, and cooking. Dr. Fusch lives in Florida with her husband, 3 sons, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jessica Fusch. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you today, Dr. Khan?
I'm doing fine. You mentioned before we started recording that you had some emergencies this morning. Are you talking about like veterinary emergencies?
I did have a puppy that is part of my house call puppy package program, and I consider those puppies like my puppies. So like one of my puppies got attacked. He's boarding at a local boarding facility and he got bit in the lip, and I just used some telemedicine to see pictures and see that he does not need stitches. He doesn't need sutures. So I'm going to go see him after this, and we're going to get him on antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, and he's not bleeding. He's fine, but poor little guy. Actually, a big guy. He's a giant puppy. He's going to be huge. He's a Great Dane.
Oh, wow.
Poor thing.
Hopefully this doesn't cause him psychological issues as he grows up. So let's start with, why did you decide to become a veterinarian and when did it happen?
As the story goes, I was about 2 years old, according to my mother. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I do remember always having a strong I was always drawn to animals, kittens and cats especially. Lots of pictures with me with cats. We had horses growing up as well. I worked on horse farms, so I have a lot of experience with dogs, cats, and horses, and some other animals as well throughout my whole life, and I always loved it. I was always interested in science, and I kind of fought it in high school towards the end. I was like, I don't really want to go to school that long. I want to be a horse trainer. And then I realized that that's actually even more difficult. To be a professional athlete, you really have to be able to promote yourself. It's difficult in different ways. And at the time, I just wasn't capable of promoting myself in that way. I could do it now, but I'm also no longer that skilled as a trainer, horse trainer. So I worked on a breeding facility, and I had a lot of great hands-on skills with horses that a lot of people didn't. And so I thought I was really going to be an equine only vet. And vet school was just always the thing that kept coming back. So as I was going through college, undergraduate, I was doing photography. I was doing all these other things. I was looking for another avenue. I was like, I don't want to go to school that long. I don't want to go to school that long. So I really looked for some other way, and it just kept coming back. It was in me. And I really don't remember doubting getting into vet school. Once I decided that I was going to do it, I just was going to do it. And I did. I did all the things that you have to do, and it worked, obviously. So, So it was a strange road for me, but yes, I always wanted to be a vet.
Interesting. But always looking for something else to get out of it, but nope, just couldn't.
The school gets a lot. It's a lot of school.
Yeah.
It gets overwhelming after being in school your entire life when you graduate from high school. And I love school now, though. I would go back if I could.
Right.
Now I wish I could go back. So it's totally different. My perspective is totally different. I loved veterinary school. I would absolutely do it over again if I could.
Huh. So when you were taking your prerequisite science courses to get into veterinary school, versus photography or whatever other classes you were taking as you were sort of doing your self-exploration, was it a rude awakening, like organic chemistry, biochemistry?
Yes. It was a little bit. I cried during my first organic chemistry exam. I left there bawling. It was very scary. And then I learned that the curve was that everybody failed. And if you just didn't fail as much, you got an A. after I learned that, it wasn't so bad. And then I just buckled down and I got myself some colorful, sparkly pens. And I wrote out all of the different processes and I can't even remember all that
all
stuff.
the reactions.
All the reactions.
SN2.
I tied them together with the different sparkly colors, and it actually turned out to be really fun. And once I got it, I actually quite enjoyed organic chemistry.
I loved organic chemistry too. I remember thinking they should sell puzzle books based on organic chemistry, but nobody would buy them. Yeah, I loved organic chemistry. Once you got over the shock of how complicated it was, it could be really enjoyable, like really complex puzzles to solve.
Really neat. They should definitely have model puzzles. And I think they actually do have those. And I think my 9-year-old son would actually really like that. I think he would get into it.
Yeah, those were helpful for me. I did get those models. Yeah, so you could see it in 3D. But okay, and then so you got into vet school on your first try?
Nope, I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't. I worked at the University of Florida as a technician in the large animal hospital. And my very first try, I wasn't quite done with everything. So they let you apply as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a little bit fuzzy, but I did get an interview and I didn't get in. And I think that might even be worse. It's like they saw me, they met me, they talked to me, and I still didn't get in on the first try. But I got an interview the second time, and I think I was just a lot more competent after working there another year full time. I said to them, let me in or I'm going to go to Ross or St. George.
You didn't.
I did. And they had changed the interview format by that point at the University of Florida. They had gone from one-on-one interviews in an individual room to all 3 of the interviewers into one room. Mm-hmm. And they added one of those, they made one of those a senior student. And I knew that student. I had helped her in the barns. She was a small animal girl and I was an equine girl, and I just had gotten to really know her, and we talked about dating and all of the stuff that she did. So it was very comfortable. It was a much easier interview. We had a lot of fun with that interview. So I can see it was much different.
Right. Well, so in your first interview, did you feel awkward? Were you nervous? Mm-hmm. And you think is that what ended up, making them make the decision not to admit you? And did you ever have, what do they call them? They do like counseling sessions for people who aren't admitted if you ask for them. Did you do that?
I did, sort of. So at the time I was working at the University of Florida in the large animal hospital, I was also bartending at night. And I spoke to Dr. Jim Thompson, our dean at the time, in the parking lot on my way to work. I said, I didn't get in. What do I do? I'm doing all of these things. And he's like, quit being a bartender. So I did. And I listened to him, and I just put full time into veterinary medicine. And, I don't know if that was everything. I also changed my GRE scores. I think that helped a lot. I took the Kaplan course. So that is not a subjective number, right? That's an objective number. Mm-hmm. And so when I didn't study on my own, I'd gotten like an 1170. And then after I took the Kaplan course, I got it like a 1270. Mm-hmm. So I increased my score quite a bit. And that's very objective. They do the entrance by some scale, and they give you points for each thing, your GPA, your experience, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so GPA and GRE scores are very objective. They give you certain points for certain scores. And so increasing that by 100, I think that really helped. Although I had a friend who got a 13 something, and she had 2 masters. She had a lower GPA score in her undergraduate, but she'd done 2 masters and gotten 4.0s since then. And it took her like 4 or 5 years to get in. And she worked in a large animal hospital with me too. I don't know. I don't know. It was the rapport that I had built with the clinician.
Yes. Very interesting. Oh, I've heard so many stories about people with great GPAs, great GREs, great experience, and they still don't get in. So this is one of the things that I'd like pre-vet students, future veterinarians to know, like, don't don't take it really hard and let them make you feel like you're no good and you're not good enough, because that's not really how it works. It's a mystery. It's a mysterious I mean, try to get the best grades you can and all that stuff, but sometimes you have the best grades and you still don't get in, and it took them 4 or 5 tries.
I agree.
So that's really interesting. I mean, I've been wondering, like, is so much of it, when you get to the interview, so much of it is your ability to appear comfortable and your ability to just have a conversation with people and build rapport. And that's what you were not able to do the first time, but the second time you were able to do that. And maybe part of it was because you've been through it once. Mm-hmm. And part of it was because you knew this 4th-year student that you'd worked with, and that just brought your stress level down, and that just helped everything flow more naturally, maybe?
Absolutely. And I had always interviewed well for other jobs. My first job as a veterinary technician, I had no experience, and I went in there and I spoke to the owner, and I was a bit nervous, and I really wanted that position, of course. And I'm honestly not even sure if they were hiring. I just had gone in. And I somehow came up with the best line ever. I said, what I lack in experience, I will make up for with enthusiasm and effort. And the doctor said to me, where did you learn your eye contact? And I got to say, my gifted and talented teacher in elementary school. Like, that was a great lead into that answer. So interviews have always been easy for me. So I'm not really sure what happened there. I think I just didn't quite have the numbers the first time. Mm. My GPA wasn't great in undergrad. It was maybe 3.4. Mm. I didn't quite have the experience, or there was just maybe other candidates that were better that year. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, I think it's meant to be.
It was for the best. Yes, right. Maybe you weren't ready,
Right.
So then you got in, woo! And tell me about, like, what you experienced versus what you expected to experience when you started veterinary school. Was it everything you thought it would be?
It was. And I had a unique perspective in that I had worked at the university. So I really felt at home there. I already knew people there. I had known older students. I had lots of friends who, in your undergraduate, you're taking a lot of the same classes as other pre-veterinary students. So I had friends who had gotten in before me. So I was really looking forward to it, and I really enjoyed it all the way through. Of course, there was times where you were tired and you had to study nonstop and all that stuff, but I remember it so fondly. And I did expect it to be great, and I think that it was.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned your first organic chemistry exam, you cried. Did you cry after any vet school exams?
I didn't. I was never afraid of exams. The energy of excitement and the energy of anxiety are quite the same in our bodies, the chemical reactions that happen in our bodies. And so I always feel excited about taking tests. And throughout my life, I've been a pretty good student. I really didn't have to try through high school all the way up. I did my homework in school. So, and I wasn't that person that was going to be so stressed out about it if I didn't get A's on everything. Also, a little bit more laid back than the average vet student, I think. So I was fine if I tried really hard and I learned what I thought I needed to learn and I got a B. Because sometimes there's questions that just seem to be out of the blue. You've never heard of that before. Sometimes there's questions that just seem like, well, that doesn't seem important at all. Why do I need to know that? And if I felt that way, maybe that's true. Maybe it was just a random question that really wasn't that important. And it wasn't something that I studied. At Western, I listened to the interview. Was that you that did an interview with somebody who went to Western?
Yes. Dr. Lisa Lippman.
Yes, Dr. Lippman. She was saying that they have a hard time knowing what to study because they're not really told what to study. Right. So that made me feel better because a lot of that stuff really doesn't apply. And so I wasn't that stressed about it. The only test that was rough for me, And it wasn't because of the content of the exam at all. It was because I decided for some reason that morning was going to be the morning that I took the pregnancy test, when I found out that I was going to have a baby in the middle of vet school. And for some reason, I took the test at 5 a.m.
No!
before a cardiology exam.
No.
Even though I really shouldn't have done that.
No. Wait until later.
So that test was really rough for me because I was like, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Holy moly.
Oh my gosh. Totally understandable. Oh, what were you thinking, woman?
I was thinking that it was going to relieve my worries and that it was going to be negative. That's what I mean. I hope my son, I'm so grateful for my son. It was just the timing. I really didn't think that it was going to be positive. And so I was shocked. I was totally thrown off.
Right.
Result.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine trying to take a cardiology exam. Now, did you pass the exam?
I believe I did pass. I just got a lower score than I would probably have otherwise.
You passed the exam.
I passed the course at least, for sure.
Okay, then. Everything was fine. Yep. Yes. So what year was this that you found out you were pregnant with your first child?
So this was my second year. And so I was pretty much pregnant through the whole second year.
Wow.
Doing, classroom stuff, which luckily I was in the classroom and we did some surgery, but I wasn't that concerned about it. We didn't do a ton of surgery. I did way more with my next two kids when I was in practice, and they're all healthy and smart. I mean, fine. So
right.
Thank God for that.
So you were pregnant during your second year of veterinary school. Now, from what I've heard, it sounds like a lot of veterinary schools, second year is the hardest year.
It's more clinical in your classes. And so the first year is just really basics, physiology. Then the second year, you have your anatomy, physiology, all those things the first year. The second year was more pharmacology, cardiology,
bacteriology, virology.
Yes, parasitology, all of those.
Parasitology. Yeah.
We had such a great parasitology instructor, though, Ellis Greiner. He wrote a book on it. I mean, he's just the funniest, greatest guy. He gave me extra points one time just because he felt like I really put in the effort. It was just like, he's like, you know what, give me that test back. And he added some points. We had excellent clinicians and professors for the most part at the University of Florida. They were enthusiastic and encouraging and supportive. And I'm not sure if it's like that everywhere, honestly, but right. I really felt like they were engaging. Sure, there were some boring classes, but they were engaging. Our anesthesiologist would secretly video us and then put pictures and videos of us into his presentations and things. So it was really fun. It was a lot of fun.
So you felt like your instructors were on your side, and I'm sure that took a lot of the pressure off, rather than having an adversarial relationship and knowing going into an exam that there were going to be questions on there specifically designed to mess you up.
No, they really wanted us to succeed. And I had a great friend who developed shingles first year. I mean, there was stress. People handled it differently. So there was plenty of stress. I just felt like I belonged there. And
nice.
I don't remember being that stressed out about it, honestly. And maybe
even though you were pregnant during your second year. I mean, and that's like, there are hormonal changes, there are weight changes, there are discomforts.
And I was finally not freezing all the time in the classroom. That was actually kind of a benefit.
And when did you have your son?
So Alec was born right after the second year ended. He was in the middle of June, and we finished probably a month before that. And we normally would have started clinics at that time. So I actually took a year off and started clinics with the next class, which worked very well. And I was so grateful to the administration for allowing me to do that. It would have been impossible to start clinics with a newborn and really put my all into it and really do a good job. And then I was very blessed and lucky that my mother had my back. She helped me so much. I was with him for the first year, and then the next 2 years while I finished, my mother was just on board. She really stepped it up, and my best friend who lived in town, and I was really, really lucky in that way.
Mm. And so did your mother live nearby, or did she come and stay with you?
She actually did not live too far away from Gainesville, about an hour, but she moved. So
Wow.
the first year of clinics, we all lived in a house that she actually loved and would have purchased, but the people decided they were going to move back. So unfortunately, she did have to move back to her own property about an hour away
Mm.
that following year, but it worked out.
Amazing. And so amazing that your school just let you take a year off and then just jump right back in. That's great.
They really want to help you. I think that once you're in, so the admittance part is really difficult. They don't take many. Of course, there was only 80 students chosen for that year, about 800. But once you're in, they want to help you succeed. If they have to hold you back, they will. You know, there's things like that, but they aren't going to kick you out unless you do something drastic.
Or repeatedly fail.
Right, which I have never seen anybody do that. I'm sure it happens once in a blue moon, but.
Right. Yeah, there was one student from my class that I think she failed 3 times, and the third time they were like, okay, that's it. Yeah. But
really
everybody else, I mean, some people, they failed and then they decided not to try again. You know, it was too much for them. They had health issues, and they just realized, well, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and I'm going to go do something else. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But
I knew one girl who got pregnant in her first year, and she did decide to leave. And I've known vets who graduated after the full 4 years and decided never to practice. So
what did they do?
One is a massage therapist.
Oh my gosh. See, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
No worries.
She's happy with that decision. So good for her.
And she still has the pride of getting into and getting through vet school and being a DVM, whether she's using it or not. Yeah. Okay. So then tell me, after you finished veterinary school and then you started working full time as a mixed animal practitioner, tell me a little bit about how that transition felt for you.
It was pretty rough. I thought that I was going to be equine only. And then because I did have a 3-year-old when I graduated from vet school, I realized that I wasn't going to really be able to do an internship. Internships and equine internships are even more intensive than veterinary school is. Really, you have to be on call all the time. Equine practice really is. Most of the solo practitioners are working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, literally. That life is really difficult to have kids. People do it. Some people do it, and sometimes they have other people in their practice and they're not working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They can share call and things like that. And I think that's the only way to do it these days and actually have a family as well. But I got this opportunity to do mixed, and I thought, well, I can still do horses and I can do dogs and cats, but I really hadn't studied enough small animal at the time. So I felt very uncomfortable initially, even though I'd had previous experience as a technician. I felt a lot more comfortable with the horses. I tracked equine. They allow you to track at the University of Florida. And I'm so grateful, though, that I went through it, because I'm so grateful that I now have the opportunity to have my own house call practice, small animal only house call practice. When I was in vet school and people said, keep your options open, I said, it feels like a breakup. It feels like a terrible breakup to say that I would ever not do horses. And, I've been through many terrible breakups, and usually it works out better in the end. So I'm
well said.
happy now.
Oh, I like that.
I'm sorry?
I said, well said.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been through many breakups and it all worked out for the best in the end. Yeah. So that's really interesting. In school, you were like, I'm going to be an equine practitioner. I'm going to be an equine practitioner. And then you got out and reality was different than what your expectations were. And I got to work on cats and dogs. Oh my God. Yeah.
So solo practitioner equine only lifestyle wasn't going to work. There's not many practices here that do equine only where there's multiple vets. Most of them want somebody to have done an internship.
Wow.
After those first few years, I probably could have gone to one of those practices somewhere near here, but there's not any at all right where I live. And my husband had established a business here, a moving company. So I went through the first 4 years at Mixed Animal, and I covered 4 counties on call for all kinds of large animals, every other weekend for a while, one night a week as well. And it was a lot. It was trial by fire. It was basically like doing an internship, sort of, with a little bit better schedule and a lot better pay. So in the end, I learned so much, and it really shaped who I am. But it was a somewhat toxic working environment. There was a lot of competition between the vets that were working there at the time. I was the new girl. A lot of the staff even just like hazed me almost.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really rough at first. And then also trying to learn and practice on all those different species at one time. And it's a very, very busy practice. I actually still do relief for them now. And I was there yesterday, and I was like, welcome to the emergency and critical care unit, because that's how it is there. It's very, very busy. It's basically like doing emergency work. I had a heart failure case, big bulldog. They're like thinking he was fat, but it was ascites and peripheral edema. I had another one that was completely paralyzed. I had all of foreign body post-op, all of these things happening while also seeing all the rooms and the walk-ins. So that's the kind of practice that it is, which is great. That speaks to what they've done a lot of things right, because so many people do come to them. And the main vet there now is one of my dear friends, and I love to help her out. And it does keep my skills up, but it is intense. And so being a new grad in that and kind of being thrown into being by myself sometimes, like right away.
Did you have people to call? I mean, you mentioned like the support staff sort of hazed you. There was competition between the veterinarians. I mean, I imagine just feeling so alone and like, who can I ask for help? And I don't know what I'm doing. And there's so many different species. And who helped you?
Vin.
That's who helped me.
My boss sometimes would be really great at mentoring, and other times would be completely frustrated and not wanting to help, because he was managing and running 4 clinics initially and then 3 after he sold one, and now he's sold all to corporate and he's much happier. But it was a lot for him, and having new vets come in. And so some days it was really great, and he would pull me over and be like, look at this is so interesting, la la la. And then other times it would just be too much, and he would be overwhelmed and not handle it well. So while I still like him and I still get it, I definitely didn't have a really great mentor. I didn't. But that's okay. The other vet, who's now my friend, she was also very new. She'd only been working there about 8 months and out of practice that long. So
she was nice to you.
She was really great, but it was too much pressure for her to be my mentor. She wasn't
sure.
my mentor.
Absolutely.
Now, totally. She's an excellent vet, and I can call her about things. And I have other friends who've been out of school a lot longer, and I can call about things. And I have great groups of people who really I can rely on now. But at the time, I didn't really have too much, no.
That is a testament to your resilience that you were able to do that for 4 years. I can imagine how incredibly stressful that would have been. And here you are saying, I'm glad I went through it. It was good for me.
It really was.
So what I want to ask you is during those 4 years, trial by fire. Okay. I mean, I had a similar experience right out of school. I went into emergency right out of school, and I had like 6 months of being on the floor with other doctors. And then I was on overnights by myself.
Yep.
And, trial by fire. I learned a lot. I think that it made me a better doctor.
Yes, absolutely. It really does. And it's really hard when you're going through it. And I think a lot of people, myself included, want to quit at that point.
Yes. And also, it makes you a better doctor in the end. You learn a lot, but a lot of those lessons are painful. Like,
Mhm.
I made mistakes that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And I'm just wondering, like, did you have cases like that? And I mean, we all do, but
Yeah, I had some that now I've really come to terms with that were very stressful. I've definitely had some where it came down to, money or something, but I still felt responsible for that somehow initially. You have to really realize that ultimately it's not up to us. But there's not any, I got really lucky, I guess. Luckily, didn't have anybody say die during anesthesia. I didn't have any patients that I felt like I lost because of a mistake that I made.
mm,
Um, when I was almost done there, I was pregnant with my second son, and I did make a pretty big mistake. I accidentally gave goats the Tilazol that was mixed up with xylazine instead of having it be mixed up with saline, and it's very bad to give goats xylazine. They can die. Ruminants do not handle xylazine. I remember being in vet school, or actually when I was a technician, and they asked me for 0.2 xylazine for a cow to sedate it when I was used to getting 2 mLs for the horses. Like, really? 0.2? Like, you mean 0.2? And they did. They meant it. So that's the difference between a horse and a ruminant for those alpha 2s. You have to be so careful. And these goats were just not waking up from anesthesia. I was sick. I was feverish. I was pregnant. I couldn't take medications. I really shouldn't have been there, but you know how we are as vets. I didn't call out. What happened? There was nobody to take care of the cases. If I wasn't there, there was nobody else. Everybody else was just as busy as I was as far as the other vets. Then I really realized, so the biggest lesson I learned through that was, luckily I saved them. Yohimbine, 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 over and over and over and over and over and over, and hours of monitoring and horrible, because I was sick and just getting sicker and sicker. Like, my fever was going up and up as I was there. And so that was bad because I was pregnant. It wouldn't even have been nearly as bad if I wasn't pregnant. I was like 8 months pregnant or something. Luckily, the goats were fine. Thank God. And, I learned through that I could pretty much handle most emergencies, but I also learned, call out. The world will not end if they have to reschedule the surgeries or the this or the that. It's fine. Take care of yourself first. Don't care what your boss or anybody's going to say. If it's the right thing to do, I mean, don't call out because you want to go to the beach and drink beer, but like, if you're sick, you don't want to get everybody else in the practice sick. You have to just admit sometimes that we're not a superhero. You can't. You just have to sometimes admit that you can't do it today.
Amen.
That was hard. That was hard for me, but I would never put myself in that position again.
Yeah.
It's not fair to patients. It's not fair to everyone else around.
Yep. Yeah. Doctors sometimes get sick, and I totally agree. Call in sick. They can reschedule those appointments.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think you risk harming yourself, you risk harming your support staff, you risk harming your patients. Just not worth it. Just call in sick.
Right.
Good lesson. All right. So then when your second son came along, that's when you decided you were going to cut back. You weren't going to do full time, and you started doing relief work. And did you have the idea that you wanted to start your own house call business, and relief work was a way for you to supplement your income while you were growing your business?
No, I hadn't ever thought of it. I actually thought that I was going to just not be a vet for a while. I was able to be with my first son for that first year because I'd taken that break, and I felt like I should give that to each of my children. And this baby was the first one, the only one of the 3 that was really planned. I was really looking forward to him, and I wanted to spend that time with him. I was going to take a year off, and I really didn't know what I was going to do after that. I knew that this practice wasn't going to be a good place for a mother of 2 or more. So I realized that as I was taking my maternity leave, and I put in my 3 months notice through that. It's kind of ridiculous notice, but that was part of the issue with that whole non-compete. Was ridiculous. It was silly. But I really intended to stay home. And then our neighbor's dog got sick. They're really good friends with the woman who owns the cat clinic in town. Also, my mom was using a different horse vet that's just right across the street from my house. And there was another person down the street. People just found out there was a vet not working. And in our area, it's in such need, they kept calling me. And then they handed out my name and number. Once I started to do relief, it just took off like wildfire. I could work full time if I wanted in this area. So relief found me. And I'm really grateful that it did, because it's an excellent kind of transition time for a mom, especially. You can say when you want to work and when you don't. It's pretty good money. You don't have to be the one to call all the blood work back and follow up with every case, because you can pass them back to their primary veterinarian after you leave.
Right.
So it's awesome. I love it. And I actually missed seeing those patients long-term, though. I did. I missed the relationships with the good clients. Of course, there's plenty that I would be happy to never see again. But there's really great people out there and really great pets. I have a picture on my Instagram right now of a bulldog who I love. The owner did my hair for my wedding. I met her at the clinic. She's a hairdresser. She and I have become friends over the years. The bulldog is just the sweetest, cutest bulldog. And she's now 8 years old. And I saw her when she was 1 or 2, way back then. And it's cool. I mean, that's just cool. I'm so glad to still know her and still be able to help out that family and watch their whole family grow over the years. So that community that you can build as a veterinarian is actually very special. And that's the whole James Herriot thing, right? It's just that, unfortunately, there's plenty of clients who price shop, bash you on the internet. I mean, we experience all of these things, all of these really negative things. But the truth is, there's also this handful of clients who will support you through everything, who understand that mistakes happen. As long as you own it, they just will continue to love you even more. They'll just really feed your soul if you find those people. And then you have the boundaries to not work with the people who drain you. And that's very, very hard, because a lot of people put business before themselves, or they don't own the business and they can't really make that call themselves. I am so glad that I have my own house call practice. And if I encounter clients like that, I will politely request that they find someone else. Maybe I'm not the right one for them.
Right. Having healthy boundaries. Yeah. And learning to recognize those people that will, there are a lot of people out there who will say that, oh, you'll tell them this is my boundary. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then the next day they'll transgress it again and again and again. And yeah, so you got to be strong enough to say, okay, now we're done. So after your second son came along, and you said, okay, I'm going to take a year off, and all this stuff just came along as, like Providence or something. But like money wise, how were you doing? You were able to just get by on your husband's income. And what about your student loans? And do you mind me asking how much you graduated with?
I do not mind. I had $180,000 in student loans when I graduated, and now I have $220,000.
Oh, that's like me.
Yep. And that's because I'm on income base. And for a while there, my income was nothing or very small.
Yeah.
And so I was paying nothing or very little. I have to look at it like I pay $500 a month to be able to have this great career. I will have a big tax burden at the end of that 25 years. I am continuing to do other things in my life, trying to build my own practice now, which should raise that ceiling eventually. As my children get older, I can work more. I can have associates working for me.
Right.
Those kinds of adjustments should increase my income over the years, that I should be able to handle that tax burden. I'm also very hopeful that perhaps we'll get someone like Bernie Sanders, who's just going to make it all go away, or at least help us out. I mean, I'm praying for anything. It's going to be a miracle that's going to make it work out, but I can't spend my life stressed about it, or else the rest of my life will just be bad. I just can't focus on that all the time. I pay my student loans the best that I can, and
yeah,
it's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, IVR, in some ways it's the best thing that could have happened to, veterinarians, because it gives us the flexibility But on the other hand, we do know that there's going to be a bill to pay. So, but you have sort of a plan, like you said, you're building your own business. Eventually, it's going to bring in more. I've also heard of, I guess you can talk to a financial planner, the kind that you pay a fee to, and they don't get like a kickback from selling you.
Yeah, the fiduciary.
Yes. And they can help you set up some sort of investment account that technically may be able to help you pay off the remainder, like the tax burden on what's forgiven at the end of 20, 25 years or something like that. I've heard of people doing that.
That's really smart. And I'm going to put that on the list of things to do, at least to discuss.
Yeah.
With a financial planner.
Because it might be a matter of just saving a few $100 a month in, something that has some interest and is going to compound over the years.
Right. I definitely need to look into that.
Yeah, I need to get somebody on the show to talk specifics about these things, because I need to learn a lot more about that stuff too.
Absolutely. When you're raising a young family, I have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and my 9-year-old's almost 10. So it's really a challenge to be able to save, pay off other debts, all these other things.
Yes.
And money is certainly not my strong suit. And I think a lot of veterinarians fall into that pitfall. Unfortunately, I think that it's very important. I learned the word fiduciary from Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game.
I have that book. I need to read it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's very actionable.
Okay.
So it's not just like, most of his stuff is life coach stuff, right? Yes. So it's a little bit more theoretical, but this is actionable. He talks about the difference between a fiduciary and other financial planners and why that matters and all of those things in that book. And so I am trying to at least increase my financial literacy, so to speak.
It's so important. And you're right. I mean, we're so busy taking organic chemistry and biochemistry and physiology. Like, I didn't have time to take courses on financial literacy, whatever those courses were,
right.
And then through vet school, no. And then after vet school, it's like whoosh, right? You just get like hit by the freight train of now I'm practicing. And then but I guess after all of that storm calms down, I guess it's time to sit down and try to figure out the numbers and get better at managing our money.
Right. And some people are very good at it. But most of us decide that we either want to buy a house or maybe have kids or maybe both, get married, all these things, all this life happens that we've been putting on hold while we were finishing school. Some people got married before school or in school, but for the most part, everyone I know put their life on hold and then boom, had it all happen. So it's that 5 to 10 years out of vet school that you feel like you can actually start to get a handle on your life again.
Yeah.
Back to the gym, read some books for fun, those kinds of things.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt. It was like 5 years out, like, yeah, big sigh. Okay. Oh, this is me. I remember you. You like to paint. Yeah, well said. So, all right. Now you're working on your house call business, and tell me a little bit about the logistics of that. Do you have like a little doctor's bag that you carry around with you? Do you have your DEA license?
Yep.
And you do, yeah? And
so
about when you prescribe things, do you write a prescription or do you have like an online store?
So I either call it into a human pharmacy if that's possible, and I do have Vet's First Choice for my online store. They also have another one that a lot of people use, and there's a new neat one that you can get online. If you have a brick and mortar clinic, it probably works better, but you can get online prescriptions sent to you, and you can actually get all of the revenue because they just get a little tiny fee versus filling it for you, but your technicians have to fill it. So there's a lot of options that way. For me, the online pharmacy works the best because I do not want to have a bunch of stock in my home with my kids and already full house. So I do most of the things through the online pharmacy or through a human pharmacy. Mm-hmm. There are a few things that I'm realizing that I will have to have on hand. Definitely heartworm and flea prevention. and a few antibiotics, things that possibly are way more expensive at a human pharmacy. Like, for example, cyclosporin. If you prescribe cyclosporin eye ointment to a dog and they go to the human pharmacy, it's $150 for a tube. If they go through my Vet's First Choice pharmacy, it's $50. So it's interesting. And then you can get antibiotics for free at our Publix here sometimes. So it depends. You kind of have to learn trial by error on those things. And it's a little bit up to the owners, the clients, to shop around for prices if they want to. I have actually a craft, like a rolling craft bag that I bring with me. I have a small scale and a large scale, ophthalmoscope, otoscope, stethoscope. I bought a microscope, which I rarely use because I send out all my labs through Antech. So they come to my house pick up whenever I give them a call and say that I need a pickup. And I have an excellent pet crematorium here that comes and handles that. I have a cold storage on my back porch, and we do all of that. I handle it, and they take it, and they're so respectful and wonderful, and they bring me back the pet, and I return it to the client. So really the only thing that I can't do right now is take x-rays and surgery. I don't do surgery in the home. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do that anyway, but I don't have one of those mobile vans that people, have a surgery suite set up in the van.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't think I would go that route. I think if somebody had to bring their pet out of the home into a separate space, that I would rather have a brick and mortar. I guess it's a little bit more convenient for the client, but it's still kind of scary for the pet. So I like the fear-free part of being in the home and the pet feeling a lot more comfortable in their own space. And that's one of the things that I love about house call practice. I also love that I make my own schedule, that I for me right now with my kids, that's just so critical. I need to be in charge of that.
Yes.
My son fell and cut his head open on the picnic table the other day, and I had to swing by the school, pick him up, say, "Oh, you don't need sutures.
Yes.
We're going to go to my next appointment. You're going to watch a movie while I finish this." And one of the clients went and talked to him, and I stayed in the home with the other client with the pet. So it just works if you make it work. There's so many things that you can do in veterinary medicine and even clinical practice. You can just really make it whatever you want it to be. And that's one of the best things about veterinary medicine.
Yes. Beautiful. Whatever you need it to be, too.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, this sounds like the perfect life. And do you bring, okay, you say that you send out your blood work to Antech. Who helps you when you're doing a blood draw, or can you, let's say you go to see a pet and they're very dehydrated and you want to give them not subcutaneous fluids, but can you do intravenous fluids if you wanted?
I haven't done that. I feel like I would want to transfer them to a clinic if they needed that.
Okay.
I could absolutely do it. I've done it tons with horses, right? We do it on the farm. I could, if I had a helper, and sometimes I do have a helper, and sometimes I don't. So if we have to draw blood from a cat, I want to make sure that I have a helper. A dog, a lot of times I can have the client just hold the head up and I go with the jugular, and it's not a big deal. They're fine. Most of the time, not always. And I try to have a technician or an assistant, a veterinary nurse. I really value that. I wish that I could have one full time. I haven't gotten to that point yet because I have so much else with the kids that I can't really offer a full-time position to somebody, what they would need, the hours and the that they would need.
Right.
So right now I have a lot, from doing all this relief, I know a lot of people, right? So I just call up a tech that I love, say, "Hey, are you off this day? Can you come help me with this or that?" My husband sometimes helps me. He's helped me even when I was doing large animal call and emergency call before at this other practice. He's helped me. He's helped me with euthanasias. He's really good, actually. So.
Wow. So all of this just grew organically. And at some point you were like, "Oh, I need cold storage on my back porch." And then, but
I knew that as soon as I set up the house call, I knew that in-home hospice and euthanasia was going to be a big thing. So by doing mixed animal, I did a lot of house calls.
Yeah.
With small animals. So they would call me out for their horse, but then also they would just call us out to the house for their dogs and cats too.
Right.
Because we were mixed and because we were mobile, I learned that it works. And I had a whole truck full of stuff then that wasn't mine, of course, but That was easier because I had everything you could possibly need, all of the drugs, all of the put in a catheter, everything. I don't have all those supplies right now. And I'm learning little by little. I'll need this, I'll need that. I need to have a little book in my car that I write down the want list, right? And honestly, I have butterfly catheters. When my dog, my miniature pinscher, ate an entire 1-pound bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips one Christmas holiday while I was in vet school. I'd just taken toxicology. I had the notes with me. I did the LD50 calculation, and it was exactly the amount to kill 50% of dogs his size. And he was vomiting and he started twitching and almost having a seizure. So I went to the farm that I had worked at in high school, and the old retired vet there helped me with just a needle on a IV line and the bag. We gave him fluids there at the horse farm. So it can be done. Sure, it can be done. Uh-huh. But I want to practice best medicine wherever possible. Yeah. And if it's an emergency clinic or a 24-hour clinic or a specialist, there's all of that is around me.
Yes.
So I will offer that, and I will encourage that.
Right.
Go to the specialist if they need to be hospitalized.
Right.
It's really not best medicine for me to be giving IV fluids in the home. Sub-Q fluids, absolutely, all day long. But IV fluids, I wouldn't choose to do that. And I don't think I'll be in a position where there's a client who's going to need me to do that, because I am a little bit more of a boutique provider. Mm. I'm not low cost.
Yes.
Yes. Time. I'm spending a lot more time with each individual pet in the home.
Absolutely. So. I love this business model, this boutique medicine. I mean, human doctors are doing it as well, because they're finding too, it's to their benefit to work for themselves rather than some other big company. Mm-hmm. And human medical doctors also have huge student loans that they need to pay, and they make more money just doing it on their own. And for them, boutique medicine is more about like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take Medicaid patients because that doesn't even pay for my gas to get to your house. But veterinary medicine doing boutique medicine, I mean, it's having, you choose your clients and they choose you because they like you and they trust you, and you provide what they want. And it's like, I don't know, it's like buying a fancy purse. Well, sometimes you want the fancy purse.
Right.
Does that make sense?
A lot of people these days, either their children are out of the home or they've never had children. These pets, they really are family. And I get it. I mean, they're not even my pets now. As I'm developing these patients, they feel like my pets though. Like, this is my puppy package puppy. I've seen it since it was first in the home, and I've been the only one. And I am in love with that animal. I am dedicated to that animal. And I kind of love that part of it. So, that's where we sometimes can take on too much.
This is what I was going to ask you. Are you on call 24/7? They call you in the middle of the night? No?
I am not. I do not take middle of the night calls. I do not do emergency. I'm by appointment only. But I am available by phone, and I will incorporate probably a membership type program once this starts to be more of a thing. I include it in my puppy packages. So a new pet owner, especially if they've not had pets before, I include telemedicine. Please text or call me. I will get back to you within 24 hours. Okay. Usually much faster than that.
Okay.
I'm happy to tell you if you need to rush to the emergency clinic because you accidentally stepped on their toe and they're crying and they won't walk on it. I'm like, give them 20 minutes. Most of the time they're fine. And if they're not, then yes, you need to go to the emergency clinic. So people just really, they love to have that person to call, that person who really has the knowledge. And I'm okay with being that person. I know that including it in part of the puppy package it feels very good to me to include that. As time goes by, I'll either have to have some fee for the telemedicine consultation for the patients. I have to have the VCPR, of course, but there may be a membership type program for my clinic that they can call me anytime because I want to provide that actually. I think that it's what they want and I don't mind it, but I want to be rewarded for that time and that effort and that expertise and knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And could you just briefly explain the VCPR for people who may not know what you're talking about?
Absolutely. So the veterinary client-patient relationship is by law that we have to see the pet within 12 months. We have to have put hands on, touched, and done a full physical exam within that 12-month period to be able to provide medical advice or to prescribe medications.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have that established, you can certainly see a picture of a rash and decide that you're fine with prescribing antibiotics. You certainly can say, oh, they've got an ear infection now, here's some medication. Of course, it's much better to do a cytology if you can do that. But, you know, sometimes it's totally like, listen, we do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of the time it works out. If it doesn't fix it in 2 weeks, we must do a culture or do a cytology. We have to move on to more diagnostics.
Right.
But it's really just realizing that we're not going to do every single diagnostic test every single time. That would be ideal. You know what I mean? But in vet school, we do a CBC chem, UA, and ultrasound and x-rays and possibly an MRI and a CT for every single patient. You know what I mean? That's like the minimum database, right? But
that's what it is in human medicine.
Right. But in real life, that's absurd. Yeah. And we don't have to be that way.
Right. Right.
No.
I mean, as long as the pet is stable, you know,
absolutely.
An itchy little rash. Okay. You know, I'll prescribe an antibiotic, maybe a low dose steroid. And if it's not better in this period of time, then you have to come see me and it's probably going to be all right. Obviously, if the pet is sick, vomiting, dehydrated, no, then you got to come in, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there was a friend of mine just the other day had a cat who'd had a previous urinary tract infection. It was a male cat. And she's like, I think my cat's dying. Should I go to the ER now or go tomorrow? And she told me a little bit more information. I'm like, now, immediately now. You must go now. And I saw her then a few days later. They had to euthanize, and it's kind of a long story why, but I saw her and we talked about a little more about what I do. She's not a close friend, but I was happy to text her back. Yes, you need to go to the ER. I mean, that's not a hard answer in that case. She's like, oh, so you could have come to me? And I said, no, I couldn't have. I don't have the equipment to pass the urinary catheter if that's what was needed. And it sounded like he was in really bad shape. He needed a hospital. And she completely got it. She wasn't offended. Right. She's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for answering me.
Right.
She just didn't really understand the difference. And that's the thing. We know so much that we sell ourselves short in our knowledge. And there's so many friends and clients that are just wanting to know if the toe is broken because they stepped on it. And they don't know that it's just like us. If you stub your toe, it's going to hurt really bad for 20 minutes. Let's just see if it can walk in 20 minutes. 90% of the time, they're back to being normal. You know, a little puppy, they're like, oh, and then they're,
oh my God, totally.
But you think you killed them, you know? So it's like a lot of times it's very easy questions that I get to answer. And that just solidifies me as the expert and provides that level of customer service that people really, really appreciate.
So tell me a little bit more about this telemedicine thing. Now you're saying that I think you should be reimbursed for your time. And it's not just your time. You know, the story of the people who called the furnace man to fix their furnace, right? And he listens over here and he listens over here and he listens over here. And then he goes whack and it's fixed. And he says, that'll be $250. And the people are like, $250? All you did was whack it. He's like, yes, but I have 20 years of experience. And that's how I knew where to whack it. That's what the $250 is for. So I think that we should be reimbursed for our time and expertise. And how are you making this a part of your business model?
So right now, the only thing that I do is I include it in the puppy and kitten packages as an add-on service. I have not created that membership platform yet, but I do plan to do it. I think that is where it needs to go. Yeah. And I think if we kindly explain and just set it up in a way that this is normal, that people will get it. Or they can pay you $25 for a 15-minute FaceTime telemedicine, you know, by case basis, basically.
Exactly.
We are going to have the guts to say that this is valuable. And I am okay with being on the forefront of that. See, I now have that confidence that I didn't have when I wanted to be a horse trainer, but I am okay with being the one to say that I do have this knowledge that you need, and I need to be rewarded for it. My father-in-law is an engineer, and he tells this very similar story about a big, huge factory that had this big, huge machine, and it was in a steel case, and it had broken down. I think it was an electric company or something. And then the engineer come out, and everybody had tried to fix it. This guy was like the top of the top, the master. And then he fixed it. He looked it over, listened, and he put an X, and he said, cut a hole here. And they cut the hole, and he fixed it, and they're like, how much are you going to charge? And he didn't really know how much to charge. So he finally came up with $1,000 back. This was a long time ago, 50s or something. $1,000 was a lot of money. And he's like, $1 for the hole and $999 for knowing where to mark the X.
Exactly.
And that's the story. Exactly. And I'm not even sure if it's a true story. It's more of a joke almost, but it's true. We have to be willing to charge for knowing where to mark the X.
We worked so hard for so long, and we sacrificed so much. 8 years of school, and then those first 4 or 5 years out of school, working and having no life and stressing and suffering and busting our butts in the evening, reading and researching our cases, right?
Yeah. And we sometimes make it look really easy. I can often look at a pet and be like, yep, there's the problem. The client came in the other day with, my cat's not eating because I bought some cheap cat food, and I was just busy and I had to go to the gas station and get this cheap cat food, and now he won't eat it, but he's also kind of gagging, throwing up. I think it made him sick. Stomatitis. It was in the mouth, but they didn't look in the mouth. You know what I mean? So it was a pretty easy answer for me once I did the exam. But until you have the experience and until you've been through school,
well, right.
You don't know that. You think that he doesn't like the food.
They could have looked in the mouth and seen something that they don't understand. I don't know. Do they know what a cat mouth looks like? What's it supposed to look like? Right.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Yeah. And I'd like us to feel more confident about being able to say, like, these are my rates. These are the services that I offer. And
there's a lot of farmers in my area. I'm in a rural area also. And there's a lot of people who did grow up on farms and do have a lot of knowledge. And so they can do a lot of stuff on their livestock and their horses, and they fix abscesses, and they do all kinds of things by themselves. So sometimes people completely devalue our knowledge. It happens. But for the most part, people do value our knowledge, and we are the ones who devalue it.
We devalue it. Exactly. Well, I mean, why should they value it if we're giving it away for free?
We give away free exams.
Yes. And why should they value it if we act guilty?
That's the most important part.
Yeah. If we act guilty for charging, then they think, well, you're overcharging. You shouldn't be charging me. It's us. I think you're right. Yeah. Right. And you know what? Like so technology is not my thing. I did not grow up with all this smartphone. I didn't even have a computer when I was a kid. I think I was like 25 the first time I had my own computer. I'm old.
Me too, actually. No, same for me though. I had some sort of typing machine. It was like this computer thing.
Right. Yeah. But the iPhone, Messenger, Facebook Messenger.
Yes.
People message you. You can actually say, please pay me, I don't know, $15 or something like that. Yes, you should look into it. You should look into it.
I didn't know that. That is so cool.
Right?
I'm going to start doing that.
Exactly. That can be incorporated into your business model. Yep. I'm on call. It's $15 for 15 minutes. No. That's it should be more than that. Probably 15 minutes for 5 minutes.
Right. I mean,
and that saves you a trip to the vet.
Yes.
I mean, or tells you have to go to the vet. I mean, it's a valuable service.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jessica Vogelson, she does whisker docs, and that's exactly what they do. They are on call that overnight thing, and they don't give you advice and they don't prescribe medications because they don't have BCPR, but they do say yes or no, ER or not. And that's so valuable.
Exactly.
And most vets don't want to be called at 2 a.m. to answer that question. So they're providing a service by providing that form of telemedicine. And I think it's great.
Yep, I do too. Now tell me about in your bio, you say that you're an author and a public speaker. What is this about?
This is new also. I love public speaking. It's one of those things, just like taking exams isn't scary, it's exciting to me. So this is my form of adrenaline junkie thing, I guess. So some people want to jump out of planes, and I have absolutely no interest in that, but I do like giving speeches. I do enjoy it. I do not mind being on camera. I just think it's fun. So I'm not really sure why. I never wanted to be an actor. I was never interested in that. But I do really enjoy giving speeches and just trying to inspire people, motivate people, share my story. I'm totally willing to be vulnerable. And veterinary medicine provides a lot of opportunity for that. I think it's a good way to build your business, build your brand, whether it's your personal brand or your clinic's brand. We need to be the experts. There's so many things online. There's so many people who just have dogs and they think they're experts in dogs. We really need to present ourselves as the expert in a variety of different ways. And I think it's fun. So that's where that comes from. I'm writing different blog posts. I write for a mom's blog, and that's just a good way to get to know other moms in the community. And I write for some veterinary blogs, magazines. It's all very new, but I'm definitely going to do more of it because I enjoy it.
Neat. And so the public speaking that you're doing, is it to the general public?
Right now, mostly veterinary. So I spoke at Uncharted Vet, which was the coolest conference ever. If you get to go, please go. They're doing one. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse at all, but it's called Get Shit Done. That one's in October. It's in Greenville, South Carolina, and it's such a beautiful place. Dr. Andy Rourke, who is quite a famous, veterinarian. For the most part, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
no, I know who he is.
He was a couple of years ahead of me in school at University of Florida. So I've known him for years, and he has this conference, Uncharted and the GSD, and they are super cool. It's just this innovative group of veterinarians who are supportive. And so I spoke there, and I've now been chosen to be part of the AVMA and Women's Veterinary Leadership speaker training program. So I'm going to be doing some stuff with that in the AVMA conference in July. And I'm very excited about it.
How wonderful. Really wonderful. See, and if you were working full-time for somebody else, you wouldn't have the bandwidth to explore these other opportunities that bring you so much joy. I think this is the way to go. I think it's diversifying our careers, taking our careers into our own hands, making them exactly what we want them to be, making them work for us, and getting joy from all of these different sources.
Absolutely. Find what feeds you. And for everybody, it's going to be different.
It is.
And that's great. That's how it's supposed to be. We can't all do the same thing.
Yep.
So.
But just remember, the first 5 or so years are going to be really rough. Don't get overly we all go through it. It's going to be hard.
I wrote an article. It's actually on DVM 360. It's about vet school buyer's remorse.
Oh, really?
All about that. Everybody, I feel like almost every person goes through buyer's remorse at 3 to 5 years out. And I have a whole blog or article on DVM 360 about it. So,
I'm going to find that and put it in the show notes. How fun. It's true. But that's the thing. Like, I want future veterinarians to know, like, that's part of the problem is when you get out and you thought it was going to be perfect and wonderful and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies.
Yep.
As soon as you
I did all the training. I'm going to be great at it. Have always, it was easy for me pretty much all the way up until I was thrown into the fire and I had to do real adulting, then it was hard. It was really hard, and trying to raise a family and do all of those things all at the same time. It was really hard, and it's still sometimes hard, but because I've said, look, I'm going to make this what I want it to be. I'm going to make it work for me and my family.
Yeah.
I have found my own semblance of balance. And of course, the scales go like this. You know, they go up and they go down all the time. And you have to readjust and you have to do all those things. A kid gets sick, you got to change it. But that's life. And as long as you keep readjusting and you don't ever let it get too far off one end where you just aren't working out at all, which I did for a few years, that's terrible. Not eating well, not working out, not sleeping enough, all of those things, which when you have new babies, you don't sleep enough anyway. So you really have to be intentional about taking care of yourself, your mind and your body to be able to even function in life in general. And it's so important for veterinarians. And that's why I love what you're doing with your podcast and sharing this message and showing all of the options and how if you really keep trying, there is a way for everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Balance and be happy and be healthy. And thank you.
You just have to get through those first few terrible, terrible years. Did you see the movie The Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
Oh, I love that movie where he escapes prison by like crawling through a tunnel of sewage. But then at the end, he like ends up on a beautiful tropical island and spends the rest of his life happy. And that's kind of how vet med can be. You just have to know that at the end of those first few hard years is something wonderful that you make for yourself. And don't think that's it. Because I did when I first got out. I honestly, and that was the, vet school buyer's remorse. I was like, this is not what I thought I was signing up for. This is awful. And
it's a huge that's buyer's remorse is a cognitive dissonance. It's a huge form of cognitive dissonance because on one hand, you spent so much time and effort to get here and you're proud of yourself and you're doing the thing that you put so much effort into being able to do.
The thing.
And then all of a sudden you're like, all these bad things keep happening. Patients die no matter what, even if I do everything I can. And people get mad at me and, people put negative reviews on Facebook. I mean, it's just all the little things that really don't matter. In the end, those things, now I have enough distance from it to see that those initial cases, those arguments with my boss, those butting heads with the other vets, none of it matters. We were all just struggling. We were all just having, bad time at the time. You have to be willing to cut the ties and get out of there. If you're in a situation like that, you do have to be willing to do that. But it's fine now.
Yes.
Like I still work there. I'm friends with him. It's fine.
Yes, it's amazing. And through all of that, you learned some skills. Like you learned how to deal with the difficult people. You learned how to create healthy boundaries for yourself. You learned how you need to take care of yourself. Even if you think you don't have time, you still find the time. And those things you learn along the way, and they make you stronger and stronger and better and better. And then life gets better and better as you start applying those things that you learned. So it's not just about the misery that you're going to face as a new veterinarian. It gets better. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
So do you have any favorite charities that you would like to tell our listeners about so that they can, if they want to thank you for your valuable time and advice, they can consider making a donation or even volunteer for?
My two favorite charities were organizations that I participated in, and that's why I love them so much, because they were experiences as much as the good work that they're doing that they continue to do that I am not currently participating in. It was almost like a charity for me at the time, as well as providing veterinary care to underserved areas. So I went with the Humane Society as a technician with the Rural Area Vet Services. It's called RAVS. They may have since changed the name of it, but they still do it. And I went to an Indian reservation and we did vaccines and surgeries. And I was a technician at the time. This was a pre-vet thing, but working with the vet students who were practicing surgery and developing those relationships. It was super cool. I really am not in touch with any of them now. I wish I would have been. Hurricane Katrina happened right after. And so some of that kind of fell by the wayside because the doctor who ran it had to immediately go into emergency mode. But he had offered to write me a letter for vet school. He was going to be one of my letters. So that was one of the reasons maybe that I didn't get in that first year. If I had that letter, I might have. I don't know. but I was able to do small animal and large animal teching. And he was like, there's not many people who can do that, and I want to write you a letter. So it was
Nice.
just the coolest experience. The people on the reservation were so grateful to us. They brought us this amazing home-cooked food.
Mm.
Oh, it was so good. And then I went to Ecuador with Project HEAL when I was in vet school. So those voluntourism type organizations just provide so much veterinary care to underserved areas and training to new vets all at the same time. And both of those things are very valuable, and that's why I love those.
Can you tell me a little bit more about HEAL? Is that an acronym for something? Is it HEAL? Because I want to find it and put a link in the show notes. If you can't, I'm sure I can look around and.
I think it is an acronym. I know that they do veterinary volunteerism and dental, because I had a friend who went to Ecuador. They went to Ecuador also, and she was a dentist.
Amazing.
So, yes, very cool. And there was veterinarians there. We got to tour the vet school there. We were in Quito, and they helped us run this. And we just brought supplies in and did lots of rabies vaccination. We set up in a school, and people were lined up down the street with their dogs and cats, bags full of cats. Like, it was so crazy. This is the neatest experience. The people were so grateful. It was very interesting there. I was trying to speak Spanish, and I don't, and I really want to learn. It was just funny. All of it was great. People were very welcoming. Really good experience for me, for our group, and providing a great service to a country where they still have dogs, so many dogs just running in the street. They may have an owner, but that's just the culture there. You know, they're eating out of garbage humps. And we went into even farther out in the rural area in Ecuador. We worked on some horses and some cattle there as well. And it was fun. It was so much fun.
That sounds amazing. Okay, I'm definitely going to put both RAVs and HEAL in the show notes. And that sounds like a really fantastic opportunity for pre-vet students to participate in. And
pre-vet and veterinary both.
And veterinary, yeah. And just to like broaden their perspectives. And that's wonderful. Thank you for telling me about that. Are there any last words of advice you would like to offer pre-vet or vet students? Something that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to say?
This too shall pass. That's one of my favorite sayings. One of my other favorite quotes is, I've been through a lot of really horrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened.
Mark Twain.
It's a great quote. It's so good because a lot of it is all in our head. It's how our reaction to the situation is the situation. That's another great quote. It really is how you handle it that matters the most, not everything else that's happening in the world. And vet school and veterinary practice falls right into that.
So true. So true. Absolutely. It's our interpretation of the event.
Yep.
And what we say to ourselves, oh my God, this is so horrible. I can't believe that person that was so mean to me and blah, blah, blah. Rather than saying, well, you know, they're probably having a hard time. I know their wife is sick or blah, you know, just reframing it.
Yep. I've had a lot of experiences where I learned later what was really going on, and it doesn't necessarily excuse their behavior or the way that they spoke to me, but it gives me empathy and compassion and 100% willing to be present for that client or patient in that hard time, and then just let it go later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine.
Wonderful. Is there any way for people to get in touch with you? You mentioned that you write a blog. Do you want to give me that information?
Sure. So I write for other people's blogs, not my own very much right now, but I love Instagram. I'm at Dr. Jessica Fusch on Instagram. I also have a Facebook page, Dr. Jessica Fusch. And my website for my house call practice has a little bit of information about me, and you certainly could email me. It's keyveterinarycare.com. You can look at that. And I'm always happy to answer questions about how do you get through it? How do you do relief work? How do you do a house call practice? A lot of people have a lot of questions about all of those things, and I'm happy.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. That's very generous of you. And thank you so much for your time today. I know how busy you are, but what a great conversation. I had a blast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'll be talking to you soon.
I hope so.
All right. Bye.